So, the UEFA European Football Championship is upon us, or the Euros, as they are more commonly known. Over the next month, 24 teams will compete to be crowned as the best in Europe, something which only 10 teams have ever achieved in the past. But it won't just be the teams that people remember, and winning isn't the only thing that matters. Between now and June 11th, there will be numerous twists and turns, history will be written, and legends will be born, some of them predictable, and some of them less so. And when they are, they will join the legends of previous generations. For England, at the Euros, that might be Gaza in 96 or Rooney in 04. For France, it was Platini in 84. For Portugal, it has been Cristiano Ronaldo at numerous tournaments, though it took the unlikely figure of Adair to finally carry the national team over the line at Euro 2016. You get the idea. Well, long-term subscribers may recall that I made a similar video to this one during the 2018 World Cup, and the reason I love this type of video is because it mixes the old and new, taking legends of the past, propelling them into the future, examining where a national team may be weakest, and picking out a former great who would improve their squad and starting 11 the most. Whilst that will sometimes be simply the national team in question's GOAT, it isn't as simple as that. It's all about making the greatest possible improvement to a team's chances of winning with a single former player returning at the peak of their powers. Without further ado then, welcome to Alfie's world of make-believe, where each of the 24 national teams at Euro 2020 could bring back one legend for the finals. And here's who I would pick for each of them. Turkey. Lefter Küçükandonyadis. I picked out Turkey as potential dark horses in my Euro 2020 predictions, and I also picked out Kenan Karaman as the country's most underrated player in my video taking a look at the most underrated player from every national team at Euro 2020. Karaman is very important to the way in which Şenol Güneş likes his team to play, but that hasn't stopped me selecting a Turkish legend who would almost certainly kick him straight out of Turkey's starting 11. Lefter Küçükandonyadis is among the finest Turkish footballers of all time, a diminutive inside left who was brilliant on the ball and pinpoint in his accuracy when shooting on goal. His talents took him to Italy and France, but Küçükandonyadis is best remembered for his many years of outstanding service to Fenerbahçe. You could make a case for picking a holding midfielder for Turkey, but a front three of Küçükandonyadis, Under and Yilmaz, with Çalhanoğlu as a number 10, would be among the most gifted and ambitious attacking lineups at the tournament, outside of the really big hitters. So, he gets the nod from me and gets us started with a nice easy name to pronounce. Italy. Roberto Baggio. Few national teams have produced as many all-time greats as Italy, particularly in Europe, meaning that I was spoilt for choice when it came to making a historic addition to Roberto Mancini's squad. One thing I would say, however, is that Italy have a really balanced side at this summer's Euros, with few obvious weak areas. Whilst Paolo Maldini or Giacinto Facchetti would of course be upgrades on Leonardo Spinazzola, I am a big fan of the Roma man. And for all the great midfielders that Italy have had over the years, I am reluctant to break up or disrupt the relationship that Jorginho, Nicolo Barella and Manuel Locatelli have developed in midfield. With that in mind, and in the end, I went for Roberto Baggio, who I think would be a significant upgrade on any of Italy's front three, as much as I like all three of them, without actually disrupting Roberto Mancini's side. Plus, manager and player should be able to hit it off pretty quickly. Wales. John Charles. Possibly the easiest decision in this entire video, we can mention Ryan Giggs, Billy Meredith, Ivor Allchurch, and so on and so forth, all of whom were wonderful footballers, but none would have anywhere near the impact on this current Wales team, in my opinion, that John Charles could. The greatest two-position footballer of all time, and among the most complete footballers of all time full stop, whether you played Charles at centre-back or as a centre-forward, he would transform Rob Page's side overnight. Personally, I'd be tempted to play him at centre-half in Wales' back three, despite the fact that I quite like Chris Mepham, but the reality is you could stick him in any outfield position, and it would virtually guarantee that Wales would become a much, much stronger team. Switzerland. Josef Hugi. A player from the same era as John Charles, Josef Hugi may be a little less well known internationally, but in Switzerland, he remains a superstar. The Swiss team is one that is fairly balanced, with a good keeper, a solid back three, two talented wingbacks, at least one excellent holding player, and a couple of dangerous wide men. Despite Haris Seferovic's outstanding goal-scoring campaign for Benfica, I remain to be convinced that he is an international-class centre-forward who can spearhead a team into the latter stages. Though, perhaps he will prove me wrong at Euro 2020. Assuming that he doesn't, I've gone for Josef Hugi, who is arguably the greatest centre-forward Switzerland has ever produced. Nicknamed Gold Feet, he scored 244 goals in 320 games for Basel and 22 goals from 34 caps for the Swiss national team. An excellent all-round centre-forward, he's my pick, and only partly because I can remember picking Andre Abeglan back in 2018, and I wanted to freshen things up a bit. Denmark. Karl Ove Prast. Another Nordic national team who come into Euro 2020 with a fairly well-rounded squad, 1992 champions Denmark are perhaps just a little lacking in real genuine star power. The biggest doubt over Denmark's squad is probably in regard to their ability to score goals, so the obvious solution would be to pick a prolific centre-forward like Preben Elkjær. However, I quite like the idea of Jonas Wind or Kasper Dolberg playing as a big man up top, with goal scorers getting in and around them. Denmark already have the likes of Christian Eriksen and Robert Skov who can do that job, but who find it to bring back than Karl Ove Prast to join them. One of the greatest left wingers in the history of the European game, Prast was quick, explosive and prolific. He scored 17 goals from just 24 caps for Denmark in the mid to late 1940s, before joining Juventus and turning professional, and that is just the type of injection of goals and flair that Kasper Hjulmand's men require. Finland. Sami Hyypiä. Jari Litmanen would be the obvious choice for Finland, and a perfectly reasonable one too. I almost picked him, but though he would waltz straight into the current Finland team as their star man, it would probably require some kind of system change to facilitate his arrival, unless you just played him up front alongside Teemu Pukki. I don't think that would be a bad shout whatsoever, but I think Finland are probably even more lacking at centre-back, where Sami Hyypiä could bring such enormous authority, leadership and class. Belgium. Josef Jurriën. The reality with Belgium, as it has been for some time, is that they have one of the best starting 11s within the international game, but are just a little bit lacking compared to the likes of France and Germany when it comes to squad depth. One of the big question marks surrounding Belgium coming into this tournament is in regard to Eden Hazard, once Belgium's star man who has been plagued by injuries since signing for Real Madrid in 2019. Hazard himself has admitted that he, quote, still isn't 100%, which doesn't bode particularly well for Roberto Martinez's side. With that in mind, my pick for Belgium is Armand Josef Jurriën, better known as Josef Jurriën or simply Jeff. The Anderlecht legend, who was thrice nominated for the Ballon d'Or, would add raw pace and a willingness to run in behind to a Belgium team that already has plenty of goals and creativity, and he could slot straight into the team on the left flank if, as one suspects, Eden Hazard isn't fully at it. An honourable mention to Enzo Schifo, who could probably do a similar job of slotting into the team in Roberto Martinez's system, but I think Jurriën would give slightly more variation to their play. Russia. Lev Yashin. To be honest, I found this to be the hardest decision in this entire video, and I very nearly went with Igor Neto since I think that Russia lack a genuinely world-class central midfield presence. With a lot of teams, I was reluctant to pick a goalkeeper since most teams at Euro 2020 have a fairly capable pair of hands between the sticks. That's not to say that I think Anton Shunin or Matvey Safonov, whoever gets the nod as number one, would be liabilities. I just think Lev Yashin was so special, and goalkeeper is such a crucial position that his introduction would lead to the greatest uptick in Russia's fortunes. Yashin is obviously, and rightly in my opinion, widely considered to be the greatest goalkeeper of all time. He won the Euros with the USSR in 1960, and whilst winning it with Russia in 2021 might be a bit of an ask, even with the Black Spider between the sticks, he would certainly make them a much stronger team. Netherlands. Johan Cruyff. Following all that guff in the introduction about me not just picking a national team's best ever player, I've only gone and selected Lev Yashin for Russia and Johan Cruyff for the Netherlands. Please let me justify myself. Actually, scrap that. There's not much more I can say about it. Cruyff is just too good to overlook, and the reality is that he would have by far the greatest impact on Frank de Boer's side of any Dutch great. In fact, they would probably improve their chances at Euro 2020 if they were to sack de Boer and appoint Cruyff in his prime as a player-manager. Clearly, Marco van Basten would also be an enormous upgrade on either Wout Weghorst or Memphis Depay up front, and Frank Rijkaard would really bolster the Netherlands midfield. But Cruyff is, and probably always will be, the right answer to this one. Ukraine. Ole Blokhin. It's a similar story with Ukraine, whose weakest position isn't in the forward areas, at least I don't believe. The old wing partnership of Andrei Yarmolenko and Yevhen Konoplyanka might not be at their absolute best, but Roman Yaremchuk scored 23 goals for Ghent this season, in addition to having scored 2 goals in Ukraine's final warm-up game. So, I would say that Andrei Shevchenko's weakest position is either in defence or just in front of his defence. For that reason, I almost went with Viktor Kuznetsov to come into the side ahead of Yevgeny Makarenko, but I think that would be overthinking things. Ultimately, either Shevchenko himself or Ole Blokhin would make the biggest impact, and I went for Blokhin due to the fact that you could play him in any of the forward roles, and it would be a bit weird for Shevchenko to be managing himself. Austria. Ernst Ockwerk. Long-term subscribers will know that I consider Matthias Schindler to be the finest pre-war footballer of the lot, and not only Austria's greatest gift to the world of football, but one of the most influential and important footballers from any nation, a true legend of the game, both on and off the pitch. Looking at the current Austria team though, which I don't think is a particularly strong one, I wanted someone who would transform the entirety of their game. That can only mean one man, Ernst Ockwerk, or Clockwork as the English press nicknamed him, due to his consistency and ability to dictate the tempo of a game. A semi-finalist at the 1954 World Cup, Ockwerk starred for both Austria Vienna and Sampdoria, and there have been few finer central midfielders in terms of both range of passing and stamina in the entire history of the sport. I'd stick Ockwerk in the heart of Austria's midfield, switch to a 3 across the middle with him, David Alaba, and either Julian Baumgartlinger or Konrad Laimer, and then Austria would have a really solid foundation and a great chance to win the midfield battle in virtually any game. North Macedonia. Darko Pankov. A young national team, representing a nation of just 2 million people, North Macedonia are competing at their first major tournament this summer, and you get the impression that they are everyone's second team. That is a status that you tend to get when no one sees you as a threat, and it wanes very quickly once that impression changes. Vujadin Stanojkovic would be a huge improvement on the right side of Igor Angelovski's back 3, but it is hard to overlook Darko Pankov. Red Star Belgrade's main man when they lifted the European Cup in 1991, Pankov was among the best centre-forwards in the world at his peak, and he'd give this plucky North Macedonia side some real teeth up front. England. Duncan Edwards. To lay my cards on the table, I think it's hard to argue with the fact that Bobby Charlton, Stanley Matthews, Bobby Moore and Jimmy Greaves are England's greatest ever players. But I don't think England are particularly lacking at centre-forward, in the wide areas, attacking midfield, or even necessarily at centre-back, so long as Harry Maguire is fully fit. For me, England's potential weak spots are in goal, though Jordan Pickford was outstanding at the 2018 World Cup, or in midfield, especially if Jordan Henderson isn't 100% fit. For that reason, it was a toss-up between Gordon Banks and Duncan Edwards for me, but I think Edwards would have the biggest impact. An absolute colossus who had already won 18 caps when he was killed in the Munich air disaster at the age of only 21, it would have been Edwards, rather than Moore most likely, who would have captained England at the 1966 World Cup were it not for that disaster. An incredibly complete footballer, stick him in alongside Declan Rice in a 4-2-3-1, and the balance and quality in that England midfield and attack would be sensational. I should point out that I'm recording this video just before England's opening game against Scotland, but I may not be able to upload it for some time after that due to scheduling issues, in case that is obvious by the time you're watching this video. Croatia. Stjepan Bobek. An easy one for me. Ever since Mario Mandzukic retired from international football in 2018, I think Croatia have lacked that real focal point up front that their talented midfield requires, since Andre Kramaric, despite his goal-scoring prowess, is such a different type of forward. With that in mind, it was just a case of picking the best Croatian centre-forward of all time, which, as far as I'm concerned, was Stjepan Bobek. Honourable mentions go to Bernard Vukas and Davor Šuker, but Bobek was a remarkable technician and a lethal goalscorer, so he waltzes into Zlatko Dalic's starting 11, becoming his star man in the process. Scotland. Kenny Dalglish. Scotland certainly aren't lacking at left back, and I think they're pretty well serviced in the centre of midfield. Anywhere else, and there are plenty of legends to choose from. A case could be made for Kenny Dalglish's old teammate Alan Hansen at centre-back, despite his underwhelming international exploits at the time, as well as Hughie Gallagher, Jimmy McGrory, and Dennis Law, but I think Dalglish is the most complete, the most willing to come deep, and the most creative. So he would have the biggest all-round impact in my eyes, and deservedly gets the call-up. Czech Republic. Josef Masopust. There is already one Masopust in the Czech Republic squad, so why not make it two, especially when the new arrival is the country's greatest player of all time. 1962 Ballon d'Or winner Josef Masopust, who inspired Czechoslovakia to a World Cup final that year, was an outstanding midfield technician, a brilliant reader of the game, and a tireless runner. Capable of playing in either a holding midfield or box-to-box role, I would stick him straight into the Czech Republic starting 11, partnering Tomáš Souček in midfield in place of Alex Král, and I think that would be one hell of a midfield engine room. Spain. Telmo Zarra. I toyed with the idea of picking Ricardo Zamora as a silver bullet to try and fix all of Spain's goalkeeping worries, but that seemed like kind of a waste. Ultimately, I think Telmo Zarra as a replacement for Alvaro Morata, or even the impressive Gerard Moreno, would be more of an improvement than Zamora in place of Unai Simon, who looks as though he will be selected by Luis Enrique as his number one for the Euros. I'll point out, by the way, that I'm recording this before a ball has been kicked at the Euros, so if anything I've said has already aged like milk in the searing heat of Seville, I apologise. That is a prediction that I suspect won't age badly though, that midday in Seville during the summer is not a great environment in which to be playing football, and the 4 games played there at Euro 2020 will present the teams in those games with one hell of a challenge, and most likely a reduced standard of football being on show. Anyhow, Telmo Zarra was a monster of a centre forward who scored 20 goals from 20 caps for Spain and managed a similar goal scoring record at club level. He would transform the current Spain team from a team in transition to potential tournament favourites behind France. Sweden. Gunnar Nordahl. It is a case of too good to ignore again with Gunnar Nordahl, though I think arguments could be made in favour of both Kurt Hamren and Nils Lidholm. Those of you who watched the video in which I shared my views on the most underrated player in every Euro 2020 squad will know that I am a big fan of Alexander Isak. And since Jana Andersson seems set on playing a 4-4-2, I think a partnership of Isak and Nordahl could provide them with a pretty stunning threat on the counter-attack. Nordahl was just about the perfect centre-forward. There was very little that he couldn't do. 6 foot 1 inch tall, quick, strong, creative, elegant and clinical, Nordahl is the most prolific goal scorer in the history of Serie A in terms of goals per game, and he bagged 43 goals from 33 caps for Sweden, despite being prevented from representing the national team during his best years. Which, isn't bad going. Poland. Kazimierz Zidane. Whilst I wrote and recorded the first half of this video, a little more than half in fact, as I've already said, before the Euros had even begun, I should say that from this point on, the first round of fixtures has been played due to the unusual way that I'm having to schedule videos during this tournament, and the vlog that I made of me attending the Croatia game. Anyhow, my choice for Poland, with a sincere apology owed to Zbigniew Boniek, is Kazimierz Zidane. Poland got off to a rotten start to Euro 2020, losing 2-1 to Slovakia, as Gregory Kukowiak saw red. There is a fair bit of mediocrity in the current Poland side, but Kazimierz Zidane was anything but that. Among the most technically gifted players in Europe for more than a decade, Dana was an artist in possession of the ball, gliding past opponents and creating chances with ease. He also scored a fair few himself, 41 in 97 for Poland, and he spent 3 injury-ravaged seasons at Manchester City towards the end of his career. Dana was tragically killed in a car accident in California in 1989, just 2 years after his retirement, having ended his career in the United States, and in 1994 he was named as the greatest Polish player of all time. Slovakia, Jan Popluha. The slayers of Poland in Group E's opening game, Slovakia, are a well-drilled side who are just a little lacking in goals. They required a goal from their centre-back Milan Skriniar in the 69th minute, along with an own goal from Wojciech Szczesny in order to beat Poland. So, you might think I'd pick out a legendary Slovakian centre-forward, and I almost did, but in the end, I couldn't overlook Jan Popluha. One of the finest sweepers of the 1960s, Popluha was defensively flawless and a world-class distributor of the ball. My logic is that if you partner him with Milan Skriniar, Slovakia would have the most formidable centre-back pairing at the tournament, and could maybe grind out enough clean sheets to reach the quarter-finals. Hungary. Ferenc Puskás. We saw against Portugal that this Hungary team is fabulously organised and hard-working under Marco Rossi, but just lacks that bit of extra quality required at the highest level, particularly without Dominik Szoboszlai in the strongest group of the finals. With that in mind, any one of a number of Hungarian legends, and there are a great number of them, would immeasurably improve this side. So I thought that I might as well go with the best of the lot. Arguably the finest goal scorer in the entire history of the sport, Ferenc Puskás was a magician with the ball at his feet. His vision was outstanding, and he had a left foot that is probably unmatched in the many decades since in terms of its accuracy when shooting on goal. He is Hungary's greatest ever player, and with him, they might just have got out of Group F. They might still, of course, but it will be very tough. Portugal. Mario Coluna. I would say there's no explanation required with this one, but Portugal have had so many great players over the years that I'd best give a quick justification. With Cristiano Ronaldo only ever likely to play in a central role now, picking Eusebio would just mean a direct battle between Portugal's 2 greatest ever players. Someone like Luis Figo would of course be a sizable upgrade on either flank, or even as a number 10 during his later years. But Portugal are blessed with plenty of talent in those areas as well. In central midfield, Fernando Santos started with 2 sitters against Hungary in the form of Danilo Pereira and William Carvalho. Mario Coluna could do that job in his sleep, but he could also do so much more. The complete midfielder, Coluna could run for days, he had a bit of magic in his boots, and he made everything look so easy. Born in Mozambique, just like Eusebio, Coluna is Portugal's greatest midfielder of all time, and he would immeasurably improve their current team in his pomp. France. Zinedine Zidane. The France squad is so phenomenally talented across virtually the entire pitch that picking a former great to improve them, whilst not difficult in essence, is certainly tricky in terms of picking which position would improve them the most. I personally think Hugo Lloris is the weakest link in France's starting 11, though he rarely lets Didier Deschamps down, and for that reason I almost went with Julien Dario. Just looking at the France team, which beat Germany in their opening game though, I think you could make a compelling case for Zinedine Zidane in place of Adrien Rabiot, whilst obviously not a like-for-like change, providing the greatest upgrade. I have said in the past that I think Michel Platini is the greatest French footballer of all time, and I still do, but France are not lacking in the goals or end product that he would provide in spades. Zizou, meanwhile, with his ability to play 1 and 2 touch football in the middle of the park and his speed in transition, would fit seamlessly into Didier Deschamps' side, bringing class, drive, and even greater physicality. So he's my choice. Germany. Gerd Müller. As I say, I planned this video and wrote most of it, and recorded most of it, before a ball had been kicked at Euro 2020. But of the latter inclusions made after the first round of fixtures, Germany is the only one that I changed after watching their opening game. I was a little surprised that Joachim Löw didn't start Thomas Muller through the middle, since I think he could do real damage there, instead opting for Serge Gnabry, and Germany looked a little toothless up front, albeit they were up against the best national team on the planet. With that in mind, I had to go with Gerd Müller, a man who scored 68 goals in 62 games for the German national team, and is without doubt one of the greatest centre-forwards of all time. His goal-scoring prowess would totally transform the threat posed by the current German team, and in truth, I probably ought to have picked him before that first game was even played. So that is it for today's video. Thank you all as ever for watching, another mammoth one in length I know, but make sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed today's video, apparently it helps with the algorithm or something. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section, and make sure that you're subscribed, and have notifications turned on of course, for HITC Sevens. You can also find me on Twitter or Instagram via the username at HITC Sevens on both, should you wish to do so.